They met under falling leaves, a chance encounter that felt like destiny. He was a photographer, capturing the fleeting beauty of the season. She was an artist, sketching the very same tree he was framing in his lens. Their conversation started with a shared appreciation for the golden light and crisp air, but it quickly deepened into something more. It was easy, natural, like they had known each other for years. They spent the entire day together, walking through the park, their footsteps crunching on a carpet of red and gold. They shared stories, dreams, and vulnerabilities under the canopy of autumn trees. There was an undeniable connection, a spark that both of them felt, but neither dared to name. As dusk began to settle, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, a sense of melancholy crept in. He was just passing through, his journey taking him far away. She was rooted here, her life and work tied to this city. The beautiful, perfect day was coming to an end. It was a bubble of time, and they both knew it was about to burst. They stood by the old park gate, the air growing colder. Words felt heavy, inadequate. How do you say goodbye to someone you've just found? How do you let go of a feeling that has already taken root in your heart? There were no easy answers, only the bittersweet reality of their situation. He reached for a hand, his thumb gently tracing circles on her palm. "I have to leave tomorrow," he said, his voice soft. She nodded, her gaze fixed on their hands, not trusting herself to look at him. "This day," he continued, "I'll never forget it." She finally looked up, her eyes shimmering. "Me neither." It wasn't enough. A single day felt like a cruel joke, a glimpse of a happiness they couldn't have. So, in that quiet moment, with the last leaves of autumn drifting down around them, they made a promise. A simple, yet incredibly profound promise. "Next autumn," he whispered, "when the leaves start to turn again, I'll come back. Right here." Same day. She squeezed his hand, a tear escaping and tracing a path down her cheek. "I'll be here," she promised back. "I'll wait." It was a pact sealed not with a kiss, but with shared hope and the rustle of falling leaves. They parted with a promise to meet again next autumn. That promise became her anchor through the changing seasons. Winter came, blanketing the city in a quiet layer of white. The park where they met was silent and still. She often woke there, imagining him, wondering where in the world he was. She painted the winter landscapes, but her palette always seemed to yearn for the fiery warmth of autumn. She'd look at the sketches from the day they met, the memory of his laughter echoing in her quiet studio. Spring arrived with a burst of life and color. Flowers bloomed, and the city woke from its slumber. There was a renewed sense of hope in the air, but for her, it was just a stepping stone. Every blooming flower was a reminder that she was one season closer. She poured her longing and her hope onto her canvases. Her art transformed. It became infused with a new depth, a narrative of waiting and anticipation. Her paintings of spring weren't just about flowers. They were about the promise of what would come after. Her work started getting noticed. A local gallery offered her a solo exhibition, and they wanted it to open in the fall. The irony wasn't lost on her. Her life was now revolving around this one season. Summer was long and hot. The days were stretched out, filled with sunshine and the buzz of cicadas. She worked tirelessly for her exhibition, painting with a fervor she'd never known. Each brushstroke was a thought of him, a prayer that he would remember. Doubts sometimes tried to creep in. It had been months. What if he'd forgotten? What if he'd met someone else? What if his promise was just a sweet lie to soften the goodbye? She would push those thoughts away, clutching onto the memory of his sincere eyes. He had to come back. Their connection wasn't something you could just forget. It felt too real, too significant. She had to believe. Then, finally, the first signs of autumn began to appear. A cool breeze in the evening, a single yellow leaf on the pavement. Her heart started to beat a little faster with each passing day. The city slowly began to transform, shedding its green for brilliant shades of gold, amber, and crimson. Her exhibition opened to rave reviews. People were captivated by the emotion in her work, the story of longing and hope woven into every piece. But for her, there was only one review that mattered. Only one person she wanted to see her work. The night of the opening was a blur of faces and congratulations, but his was not among them. The day arrived, the day of their promised reunion. It was a perfect autumn day, just like the one a year ago. The sun was warm, the air was crisp, and the leaves were falling in a gentle cascade. She closed her gallery for the day and walked to the park, her heart a tangled mess of hope and fear. She sat on the same bench, clutching the sketchbook from the day they met. She waited. Hours passed. The sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting long shadows across the park. The crowd of afternoon strollers thinned out. Doubt, cold and sharp, began to pierce her heart. Maybe she had been a fool. Maybe it was all just a beautiful, fleeting memory she had clung to for too long. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at the empty path. It was getting late. He wasn't coming. She stood up, the sketchbook feeling heavy in her hands. She took one last look at the tree where they first spoke, its branches now almost bare. She had to let go. With a heavy heart, she turned to leave. And then she heard it. The click of a camera shutter. She froze. It was a familiar sound, a sound that had been etched in her memory for a year. She turned back slowly, her heart pounding in her chest. There he was, standing by the tree, a camera in his hand and a gentle smile on his face. He lowered the camera. "I was just trying to capture the most beautiful thing in the park," he said, his eyes meeting hers. "I'm sorry I'm late. My flight was delayed." Relief washed over her in a powerful wave, so intense it made her weak in the knees. All the waiting, all the doubt, it all melted away in that single moment. She ran to him, and he met her halfway, wrapping his arms around her in a tight embrace. It felt like coming home. "You came," she whispered into his shoulder, her voice thick with emotion. He held her tighter. "I promised, didn't I? Eh? Sa. E? I've thought about this day, about you, every single day for the past year." He pulled back just enough to look at her. "I saw your exhibition," he said, his eyes shining with pride. "It was incredible. You captured it all. The waiting, the hope. This time, there were no goodbyes looming over them. He wasn't just passing through. His journey had led him back to her, and this time he was here to stay." They walked hand in hand as the last light of day faded, not as strangers who met by chance, but as two people whose love story was just beginning, written in the colors of fall. The promise of autumn had been fulfilled, and a new promise, one of a shared future, was just beginning. It turns out, some things are worth waiting for. Some promises are meant to be kept, and sometimes, a love that begins under falling leaves is a love that can withstand every season that follows. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. We'll see you on the next video.